Today, we're going to talk about relationships with hobbies, okay? So I want to find out what everybody's hobbies are. We're going to dive into where these hobbies have come from, how they impact your life, how they've changed over time. And so I just want to start, before anybody takes over the mic and starts talking for minutes and minutes, I want to hear what everybody's hobbies are. We'll do it popcorn style. I'll go first. I'll call on someone. So my hobbies, number 1, snacking. Number 2, dance. I've done dance all growing up and just starting to get back into it some. Number 3, picking up rocks and sticks. That's my hobbies. Okay, Jared, you're next. What are your hobbies?
All right. Well, I love music and performing. I've loved that for my whole life as long as I can remember. I love musical theater and acting and dancing and tap dancing. And then within that same musical grind, I also am now on the ascension of learning how to play all these different instruments like guitar, piano, kalimba, all these different things, and have my sights on more that are so expensive. So who knows? Maybe that collector conversation from earlier we should revisit at some point. But beyond music, I love tabletop role-playing games. I love games like Dungeons and Dragons. Oh my goodness, experiencing fantasy worlds of any variety or genre with my friends is just like such an amazing thing to do with my free time. I love it. And then I also really love video games. Some of my favorite video games are the Portal series. That game really opened my mind for the first time to thinking with a supernatural ability. In that game, you're given this device that can put these like rifts in space-time on appropriate surfaces, and it's basically like a doorway.
Not inappropriate surfaces. No.
On appropriate surfaces.
Yeah, only appropriate surfaces, not inappropriate surfaces.
And so if you put one portal here, one portal there, and you walk through one, you walk out the other. And the whole game series is solving these puzzles that involve utilizing this. And what it gives you is the game calls it thinking with portals, and it's something that I have sort of taken on with me in the rest of my life, where it's like the ability that you gain once you have enough familiarity with a supernatural ability or power or something that you could do, where you can apply it creatively in like different situations. And so that game really inspired me in that way. I also super love turn-based strategy games like XCOM, where you are controlling this group of space marines trying to stop the planet from being invaded by aliens. Or I really love stealth games like Splinter Cell or Dishonored.
What about rocks and sticks? Do you like rocks and sticks?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of hobbies.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, you're taking my minutes, Jared.
All right, that's all.
Is that all the games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the 3.
All right, you popcorn to somebody else.
Justin.
I feel like my general hobby, like overview, is like projects, like working on projects, and in that, the projects that I really like working on right now are kind of like hyper engaging, like to comedic extent with video games, to get like crazy good at them.
Okay.
And then to thereafter have this like some kind of content event like with my friends, and promoting that event, I will like build narrative and hype for like all of us around building this skill, and then we'll like monkey business market it, which is just like whatever marketing on
That's
Instagram.
That's a good company, Monkey Business Marketing.
Monkey business.
I could see that really growing.
Just kind of like putting images or whatever every day in a week, and then just justifying my like playing a game for 2 months and turning it into a resume line, kind of like I described on a question before. But yeah, so I like justifying things by like doing production work around them and then making them like an event, and then like manufacturing narrative and hype to it and stuff. It's goofy and fun.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, in that, I really like visual design and drawing and music production, and I use both of those in like the projects and promoting of events and stuff. I love putting together UI design, or not UI, but like overlay stuff. Stuff that you're looking at, and then like logos and brands and stuff. And it's just kind of, at this point, I don't need to like have original music. It's probably just the flex. Like I want you to look at a thing and just be like, everything about this experience is like
custom.
It's custom. It's made to feel exactly like this. I'm hitting this niche. So art directing is what I like to do right now.
Okay.
I like to art direct.
I would like a segment every week now called Justifying, and Justin comes in.
Justin-fying.
Justin frying.
All right, you hit them all?
Yeah.
All right, your last. What you got?
I had to think really hard about this, and I think Justin kind of nailed it. I work on projects, and I work on, like, I am my hobby, right? Like I work. Maybe we're back to the narcissism topic. No, I mean, like, a lot of people read. I tend to do master classes and TED Talks and a lot of YouTube shorts to help kind of build and broaden my perspectives on things. And I think a lot of that's because it relates to my job. Most of the things I do when I'm not working, you could probably call working. There's a real downside to that, right? So I've talked about this before, where a little workaholism in there, but I'm also so passionate. I feel like I get a lot of joy out of it. So I don't know if it is work. It's somewhere in the middle there. Collecting, I don't know if I really collect. If we're talking just generically about hobbies, there's stuff I do with my kids, my daughters. We do a lot of pop culture. We like watching movies and stuff like that, and we play games. And people might think, well, gosh, don't you play a lot of tabletop board games? And I do to a certain extent, but not near as much as people think I do. That's a fact. I enjoy designing, I think, more than I do, playing weekly. I think I could probably play weekly, but that'd be about it. I don't know if I could do the 2 or 3 times a week like a lot of people do in the tabletop industry. But most of my time is spent making. Like, creating is my hobby, and getting better at that, and trying to learn new things, and trying to, I learn a lot from you guys. I talk about this. I feel like I've learned so much from Orange Nebula, a lot more than than has gone the other way. That kind of is the thing that gets me up in the morning. That's the hobby, is getting a broader perspective, and then how can we make something tangible out of it? How can we make a tabletop board game, a book, a story, a brand? And so that's kind of the thing for me, is I collect that, or I that's my hobby. Maybe that's a cop-out. I have no idea. That feels like a cop-out.
The only thing I can think
but
of.
it's true.
Sounds like a CEO hobby. My hobby is I'm a CEO forever.
Is I run a business.
Shackled
You know what
to
you're
being a
good at?
CEO.
Yeah.
Everywhere you ever go, you're good at finding the best coffee shops. Like, that's kind of a hobby, I feel like. I mean, that too is a place where normally that's where your creativity kind of comes to life.
I'm
but
a snob.
But
This is
everywhere
coffee
you go, you're
Coffee
like,
snobbery.
I'll tell you are you getting coffee? There's one good place in town. Here's where it is.
It's my
Like,
snobby hobby. Yeah.
Oh, snobby hobby. I like it.
I don't
Yeah,
even
you
know
like
if it's
that.
a
That was just for
hobby
you.
at this point. I would say like he's gone connoisseur with it. Like he's got like
It's-
if you are snobby, if you have
Charge a
cynicism.
consulting fee.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciate the spin that you've put on this. It's really just a hard drug that goes into my veins every day. Like, I need
So
to
that
have
you
it.
can work more.
so that I can so that I can grind myself down to just a nub before I die.
Grind. That was a good pun. Jared, let's talk a little bit. You and I both have performance elements in our hobbies. So I'm curious. I have some ideas about how I think these performance hobbies play into the work that we do now. But have you thought about that at all? What about performing? How does that hobby interact with and add to your job and the things that you do with your work?
So performing wise, I think that one of the things that it gives me is that it allows me to keep track of the whole story and all of the different character motivations within, and trying to maintain a semblance of cohesion, and that everything is working together and makes sense, and that you can understand why different things in the world would be happening, or why different people would be doing different things, so that you're not asking yourself like, where is the internal like structure of this world? It doesn't feel like it is actually solid. My goal is for the worlds to feel solid, like a place that actually exists, that you're learning about, that once you suspend your disbelief is just a world you can experience.
And that only works if the backstories are all connected, if, the story runs through. That makes really good sense.
You want to be an effective instrument of that story so that people can get it.
Yes. I have been using the actors are instruments analogy for a while, that it's like you are a tool of the group's creative expression, and that like the whole artistic creative team, that you are trying to get to a point where you are making every single one of them feel like their vision is happening on stage.
My performance elements are more dance focused, which is, as opposed to a 2-hour long production that has many characters involved, there's like a 2-minute routine, and that performance element with my work that I do, that's so much short form content. I'm working on social media so often, and I've got to get messages across to people and storylines understood in seconds, as people are scrolling through. So the ability to understand what's important in a story arc and how to hit on those things in the right sequence at the right time with the right rhythm, I think plays into my work a lot. Even when I was even as a leader, my work as running my business, I was watching that video that I was talking about earlier, where I'm like commentating on my own performance in the video. And it showed me like there are times when you're performing a routine where you might miss something, you might mess up, you might, do something wrong. And that's fine as long as you then hit something big, right? You bring the attention back somewhere else and you do it with a great look on your face. Like, if that's not leadership, you mess up and then you hit it big. You lose it a little bit and then you're off the ground. You just have to be able to keep rolling, and just there's nothing that can stop you mid-performance when you're on. You can't just stop. I mean, you can, but it's very awkward for you and for your audience if mid-performance you don't continue. And so those skills that I learned through.
That sounds like my life.
Right?
What it sounds like. Yeah, you just kind of biff it, and then you just pretend that didn't happen. No, I was just tying my shoe. It's all good.
Yes, exactly. So I think that those performance skills from dance play into my work through social media and as a leader overall. What about how it plays into your work?
Well, right now, very luckily, what my hobby is generally what I'm supposed to be doing.
In your job.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. So yeah, making establishing narratives and hype about stuff is what the flavorful thing that I'm doing, but what that is just video marketing, video promotion, and getting people to attaching a story to something just makes it more interesting. You are more intrigued by it and feel like something historic is happening. So being able to work on video media production stuff for Orange Nebula and try to imbue it with external canon that doesn't exist in sort of skit formats, and giving just an extra sense of who we are beyond just kind of the people and the creatives, has been what I've been doing, almost establishing us characters that this fake content character. Well, not fake. Just
well,
scripted.
You're right. I think about with the Gen Con video that you did, and we had the wormhole that was here, the specific role that you had Kevin playing, that you highlighted him in the Gen Con video with these kind of almost annoyed.
It was great.
Comments. And then in the wormhole, what ends up happening, he's got Derek sitting on his lap and he's like, could you get off me now? You know, it's like the same through line that you're creating. He just stuck his head in here right now. He's watching me. But yeah, I think you're doing a really good job of establishing that.
Thank you. And that's actually, that's a great example of being able to pinpoint the office dynamics that I'm seeing and just like looking through the clips of what I get and establishing roles of just like, okay, this is what Kevin is giving me. This is what Mark is giving me. He's sitting on the floor eating lunch. I'm filming that. That's going to be him.
This discussion has prompted an interesting observation, and that is, I think that sometimes our view of ourself is much different than either reality or what other people's perception is.
Okay.
And it would be really interesting, maybe on a future episode, for us to actually speak for someone else. This is what I think Justin does. This is what I think Jared does. Jared's talking about you. Wow. Or, maybe just go ask your partner or your kids or something, like, what is it that you think Dad does, right? Like, what are my hobbies? And they're going to roll their eyes or whatever, my kids would. But and then they're going to say, well, it's obviously this. And I'm like, well, interesting.
That'd be really interesting.
I think that might be a fruitful exercise for
totally
us.
agree.
Yeah. Like, what made you say yo-yos?
I hear you guys talking about yourselves, and I know you all to a certain degree pretty well. And I'm thinking, I don't think you've really hit the gem center of what you're doing, right? You're communicating. Like, there's a performance part, particularly with you two, brother and sister. I don't know if that has a relation to that, but communicators, right? Like there's an invention part and there's an engineering part, but mostly we're communicating. We're trying to engage with people so that they see things a little differently.
Yeah.
Like Justin likes to invent playful, clever little, what he calls, hype videos, but it's a lot less about hype and it's a lot more about coming from a strange direction so that somebody can get a jolt of, I didn't see that coming, right? That's so satisfying, and I love that. And it's the same thing with you. I mean, I could speak about all of you, and I just think, what an interesting, like, I don't even really feel like I know myself at all. I feel like I should just be asking questions to other people, and that might make me better at what I do.
Next episode. Let's do it.
This is absolutely.
Challenge
we're
thrown
gonna
down.
Write down this format
Now,
in the
something
meeting.
that Justin and I haven't really touched on is that, Justin and I have spent, I've played Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games for many years, and a lot of that time has been spent with Justin at the table. And, both of us have ground our teeth on those. And, now you're doing a lot of media production, you're doing music and video editing. But when you very first came here, when we both first came here, it was right in the middle of the Chronicles project. And so we were writing and thinking about different character motivations and stories and locations and stuff that's going on there. And it's been really interesting to see how the hobby that A, people think is like Satanism, and B, is
they did at one point
a waste of time in Fantasyland, could actually like positively impact your performance in a work environment. I mean, like a few months before we started working here, I was just thinking about the Dungeons & Dragons magic system and my frustrations with it, and how it kind of felt like a trading card game where you're wandering the land looking for these very specific abilities that are only useful in these very specific situations, and wanting to like free it up. And so just for my own personal at-home Dungeons & Dragons game with Justin and several of my other friends, I went through and wrote this several-page rules expansion for the game, and that was actually able to be like instrumental in my like interview process as like something that we could discuss as an example of my game design and my thoughts about rules and mechanics and design philosophy. And it's just insane how the stuff that you do just for fun, for random, because you think that it is worth doing, could impact your job.
One of the questions that I had on here is, what are some unexpected connections coming from chasing your curiosity? And I feel like that's a really good example of that. When we just feel compelled, even saying that made me get goosebumps a little. When we feel compelled to chase our curiosity, it's almost never a waste. It adds these layers of depth and interest and often ends up turning into a project, like Justin, you dive into your curiosity to create these projects that maybe seem standalone, but then when you get into a career, it's no different. We've got projects to create. We've got things we've got to hype. We've got stories we've got to tell. And all of the things that really pique our curiosity add to our skill set later without even, not even intentionally.
Taking something from the point at which you're thinking about it to acting on it inherently adds value because now somebody else can relate to it, right? So the fact that you took this idea in your head, instead of just thinking about it, and someday I'm going to do something, you actually acted on it and you put it on paper and you brought it in. You'd be like, hey, I don't know if this is silly or if this is cool, but I'm really passionate about this right now. Isn't it awesome? And we were like, yeah, it's awesome. And the initiative part of it, I would suggest that beyond the value of the thing you did, you taught yourself something that goes beyond that, right? Like you taught yourself that you can do something. Like you started here. What else are you capable of now?
Yes.
And that initiative is probably part of the reason that you're here, obviously, but the same with Justin. Everyone, I think, to a certain extent, attracts the right type of attention. I don't mean the attention that's personal. It's not about Jared. It's about the fact that he took initiative.
It's always about Lacey. Yes.
That's right. So anyway, that's my point.
Said I took initiative or something.
Yeah, that's it. I took initiative.
It's always taking the
No.
initiative.
Stole my initiative.
It's important, I think, what you're saying, though. The big shift that happens between thinking about something and acting, there is so much power, right? When something's just inside your head and you're just thinking about it, even talking about it, that's one thing. But when you create or do based on your curiosity, you're right. It makes it real and something that other people can be drawn to, which that's probably not the point, but it makes it real, right?
Yeah, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but people who do hard things inherently get the rewards, right? So if it's not difficult, it's probably not that worth it, right? There's no easy way to do. I mean, there's a lot of easy ways to do things, but they're not very rewarding. And I think people who take the effort to do something difficult because of their passion or whatever their motivation might be, have something to show for it inherently. And it's the difference between average and amazing. I mean, it just is.
And I think difficulty, it's not up to our standard of difficulty necessarily, because we're talking about like why you should do whatever project, even though you feel like it's probably like not worth it. Like doesn't have
It's just
to do.
a hobby.
Yeah, it doesn't really have to do with anything like you even want to really pursue, but. And it's because like what's difficult for people, and this is coming from a background of like young indie artists who are all like drawing stuff in their sketchbook. I hear a lot of complaints about like art block and about just like not like, man, I wish I was like throwing down like projects like you, dude. And it's like, they're just not, I just can't like finish anything. I just can't. And it's like, it's a hard thing to do. That's why it's like worth it, because it's like hard to even start. And I had a point. And
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
Yeah.
I think most people
start.
find it easy to start because they're daydreaming, right? They think, well, I've got this kind of cool idea, and they're entertained by their own idea, right?
There's
that narcissism again, not you.
Whatever.
But, and then there's a point at which they have to decide, if they're going to move forward. And I missed my point too.
Yeah, dude,
Boys.
right.
It just spreads. It was so good.
Something about how like, well, it's. Oh yeah, okay, cool. My thing was that it's hard to start anything, and I think that's just a dumb thing to say. That's what I think about immediately after saying it's hard to start anything. Oh yeah, okay. It was that like. Just life objectives, just like assigning yourself like a life objective is really, really good from starting anything and being determined to finish it, because all of this meaning an objective is just like pretty fake, and it's like you can assign it to anything, it felt so good to just know for a year that like I'm on this earth because I'm making my little thing.
This project.
I'm making my little project, and like that's what I do, and that is like, you know, what I'm about right now. If I can't believe in anything else, I can know that this little thing that I have complete control over, I can keep kicking it along until I'm finished with it, and that is worth something because it's hard to start things. That's the point.
And even harder to finish them. Yes, the persistence thing will get you through.
Didn't give up.
A lot of people. How many people do you know that have an idea and they tell you they're gonna do something, and then they start it and they're really passionate, and then it burns out, and they're like, I just don't feel like finishing that. Well, what if you did?
Yeah.
What if you did?
Well, I'm gonna finish this podcast because I finished
solo.
things.
You're just gonna finish it by yourself.
No, it's just it's time.
It's time.
So.
It's time.
You're steering. You're steering us back.
Yes.
Back
Totally
to port.
is time.
Because
back
this
to
is
port,
my hobby.
boys.
My heave. I do have. Thank you, for your vocal assistance there. What did you call it? Your sonic range.
Sonic palette.
Thank you for your sonic palette. One thing that I'll say is coming up with a life objective, if you will. You know, I worked on coming up with a personal tagline of I host conversations that matter. Okay. And so that's kind of how I show up. If what we're talking about is surface level, I'm not interested. So this podcast today, I think, satisfied that.
Super mattered.
It's super mattered. So thank you, three, for being here. If we had more time, we would sit here and talk forever. But grateful for those of you who have been listening as well. You can hang out with us in the Outpost community. We will be talking in there. You can send us ideas, community questions, topic ideas you want us to cover at orangenebula.com/topics. You can leave us a review if you loved it. If you didn't, please just don't. Maybe have a snack and a nap. You'll feel better. Okay. We hope you all have a good day. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye. Goodbye.
I can't do the noises very well.
I love your noises.
Oh, thanks.